Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Real Positive Girl podcast. My name is Sabrina. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of the podcast. Happy Tuesday to you. I hope that your day is going super well. If it's just beginning, then awesome. I hope that you're having a good time. I hope that things are just, running smoothly. That's how I always want my day. I don't want it to be perfect. I don't want it to be easy necessarily. I just want everything to run smoothly. So if I do run into problems, I hope that I'm able to solve them, get through them, just move through it smoothly. So I hope that's for you as well. If you're in the middle of your day or towards the end, I hope that it was smooth as well. Hope everything was just like gliding by and you're just feeling good about it. But if you are having a bad day, I hope that you were able to take some time to, put into practice my 5-minute reset that I talk about. Find at least 5 minutes. If you're able to find more, do that. But I always talk about finding at least 5 minutes to be by yourself, to be able to feel peaceful, to reset, to reboot, to come back to baseline, to figure out what you need to do to be able to survive the rest of the day, to go through the rest of the day feeling at least neutral, if not in a positive mindset as much as you can. You do not have to be the most happy person in the world. Absolutely not. I understand. You're going through crap. You're feeling really bad. And you're going through troubles. But I want you to be able to feel as positive as you can. Middle ground, neutral. Be able to get through the rest of the day. Feel grateful and humble for the things that you still have. And being able to overcome the problem. Take some time to also problem solve. Figure out if you need to solve that problem today or tomorrow. You know what I mean? So let's take that 5 minutes at least to just, reset and be like, okay, I can go through the rest of the day. I don't have to throw this whole day away. No one should ever do that. You should be able to just continue through the rest of the day after you take some moments for yourself. And also, if you need to have a 5-minute reset more than once a day, there is no shame in that. Because at least you're taking the time to really just regroup and figure out what you need to do, as opposed to just letting your emotions fly free and taking over your whole self. So, do that. I encourage you to do that. But I really do hope that your day is actually just going well. So happy Tuesday again. Just a reminder that this week we were talking about creating SMART goals, the SMART formula for creating goals. And today we are talking about creating measurable goals. So let's go ahead and just jump right in. Making sure your goals are measurable will help you keep track of your progress, obviously, and you might just think most goals are measurable. I'm going to give you some examples of goals that aren't measurable in just a little bit. Goals that aren't measurable make it hard to track progress and give you any idea of how far you've come and where you are headed based upon how you are progressing. So what I mean by that is that obviously, if you are tracking your progress, you know how far you've come and how far you have to go. But also, you know how long it'll take you to probably get to the end by the time you've taken some time to track your progress, because you know what speed you're going at, You have figured out if you've picked up the easiest, the quickest, the most smoothest way to attain your goal by this time, if you take some time to actually track your progress. So I encourage everyone to track your progress for any goal you're doing, because, it kind of gives you some research on knowing how long it's going to take you to do this in the future if you decide to do it again, or to let someone else know how long it takes to do whatever. I was actually thinking the other day, this is such a random thought. I was thinking the other day, my husband was like, so how long will it take you to cook the bacon? And we were cooking burgers or something, and he was in charge of smoking the burgers, and I was in charge of getting all the fixings that go on top and cooking the bacon, because he was having guacamole bacon burger and I was just having a bacon burger. So anyway, he was like, how long does it take to cook the bacon? And I literally, I don't know if this happens to anyone else, but I just literally stood there and I was like, why would I know this information? And, you know the information because you've done it many times. And, when you're cooking bacon, that's probably not a goal that you've created for your life, nor is it something that you're going to be tracking your progress. But you know how long it's going to take because you've done it before. Now, maybe you've never cooked bacon before. If you haven't, I'm sorry, because bacon is so delicious. I mean, that doesn't mean you haven't eaten it. It just means you haven't cooked it. But if you haven't cooked it at your home, you haven't had it enough. Like, oh, it's so good. But maybe you're vegetarian, and that's fine. Let's get off of that tangent. But I'm just saying, like, I was just thinking, like, wow, there are so many things in our life that we know how long it's going to take, because not necessarily because we've taken the time to, track the progress of that, but in our mind, we kind of did, like, without doing it on purpose. Because if someone asks you how long is it going to take to do this, that, and the other, and you've done it many times, then you know from experience, like, well, based upon the average amount of time of me doing this, blah, 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 this is how long. And my answer to him was 10 minutes. And that's about how long it takes to cook one pan of bacon, which is all we needed, which was like 8 slices. So, so I was just thinking about that, because, if things that you don't even mean to track the progress of or see how measurable it is can just be measurable in your mind. So let's switch back to actually talking about the topic. But I just find it to be very interesting. Like, when people ask you, like, how long is it going to take? You kind of are already, like, used to measuring out something of how long it'll take or what the progress of it is, because we inherently do that with things that we do, like, on the regular. Like, if someone was like, hey, I want to go out to dinner, and you're like, okay, well, what time? And they're like, well, 7. And then you're like, no, that's not going to work because it takes me about an hour to get ready. It's like, you already know how long certain things in your life are going to take. So I think my whole tangent on that was for you to encourage you that, you might not want to track the progress of your goals, but just realize that you subconsciously already track the progress of things in your everyday life, because you know how long it takes to do something. So just think about that. Okay, let's get back on track. Not keeping track of your progress can also cause a lack of motivation. So, you're going along, you decide to create a goal to run a 5K within the next 5 months. And, that might seem like a long time for someone that has run before, but for someone that's never run their entire life, I think that's like quite enough amount of time for you to get in shape for that. So you're like, okay, well, I am going to run this 5K in 5 months. But let's say that you're like, okay, you're going to go to the gym every other day and you're running, but you're not really keeping track of like how fast you're running from day 1 to day 15 to day 30, 45, like you're not keeping track of your progress. You can't, if you're not keeping track of your progress, you can't determine whether or not you're going to be able to run consistently the whole time for the race, if that's something that's important to you. If you're more focused on like a run walk, but you still, usually within races, you have to know like at what speed you're going to run. So are you going to run at a 10-minute pace, 11, 12, 8, 9, like whatever it is. And to know that, you will have to be tracking your progress while you're training, because that'll, you'll help yourself to figure out like where you're building up to. Also, many training plans for running. I know this seems like a very specific goal, but it's like I feel like it's a good, easy example. Most training plans, you will choose what pace you want to work up to, and then you will train to work up to that pace or faster. So it's just, it's really nice to, have that progression plan to realize, okay, well, I'm going to run this race, and I'm going to track the progress of me being able to run at like a 10-minute pace. And this is probably for someone that's like never run before, but up to a 10-minute pace. And then just knowing that you have that mini goal within your bigger goal really just helps you with motivation. And not tracking any of this progress, you're not going to have anything to get excited about along the way. You're not going to have all these like mini interim goals that lead up to the big goal, which is super important, because all those little things like in between, those milestones that you're going to hit while you're working up to your bigger goal, just makes it even more sweeter. You feel more accomplished. You feel like the whole thing is worth it even more. So I would just encourage you, keep some sort of progress. It doesn't have to be the most super detailed progress in the entire world, but even just keeping track, like, okay, today I ran for 10 minutes at 12-minute speed. Okay, And then the next time you run, you record, how long you ran at what speed. And then maybe in 3 or 4 weeks, you're like, oh my gosh, compared to week 1 to week 4, I am now running a minute faster or whatever it is. And so you'll be able to compare those things. You'll get more excited that you're actually making progress. And there's nothing worse than, working towards a goal and realizing that you're not making any progress. And maybe you are making progress, but you aren't able to tell because you're not keeping track of anything that would give you those indications or those markers. So yes, please keep track to help you with any sort of lack of motivation. And you might not even know you've hit your goals if you don't keep track of your progress. So I know that seems really weird. Okay, well, you'll know. You're thinking, yeah, no, you'll know. You'll know when you hit your goal. Especially for the running one. The running example is you'll know you'll hit your goal because you'll actually run the race, and then you'll end up running at the time that you wanted to run it or finish it, and however much time that you maybe plan to do that. But sometimes maybe you are on a weight loss journey, and you're okay, for the sake or fat loss or being able to, just being able to do something, or maybe you're a salesperson at a job, and if you don't keep track of the sales that you're making, or if you're in a weight loss thing, if you're not keeping track of how your weight is progressing over time, then how will you know that you've actually hit your goals if you're not tracking your progress, For the running one, you'll know that you've hit your goals because you actually ran the race. But then maybe you're trying to lose some weight. How will you know if you don't weigh yourself every week and keep track of that in a log somewhere? And if you're a salesperson at work or within some sort of organization, and you're trying to create the more sales or sell this many of whatever it is, how will you know that you've reached that goal if you aren't, tracking that progress? And how do you know if whatever you're trying to do to accomplish that goal is working if you don't track the progress and then compare it to different ways that you're trying to do it? So let's say you are trying to sell 20 cars in a month. I don't know if that's a real goal, if that's a real actual attainable goal, or if that's super easy. I don't know, but that's just the example that I'm using. So let's say you want to sell 20 cars in a month, and you just go about your work day every day. You're selling a car here, there, and everywhere, and then by the time it gets to the end of the month, you don't know if you sold that many if you're not keeping track of your progress. But in addition to that, let's say that this week you decide to send out emails or very direct specific messages to clients that have come in before for cars, or people that have seemed interested online. So you decide that week you're going to send out that information and then see how many cars you saw at the end of that week. And then the next week you decide to do something else. Maybe you decide to give all these people an actual phone call or a text message, okay? And then you keep track of how many cars you sold that week, and then you try something else a different week, And then you can go back and see okay, did it work better for me to just send out the email, or did it work better for me to make the calls, or did it work better for me to do something else? So I would in that you can use that for your weight loss thing too. Did it work better for me to just, eat in a super calorie deficit and just walk every day? Or did it work better for me to actually go and weight lift and then be in not as much of a calorie deficit, but still in a deficit? Or did it work better for me to do more cardio and, eat a little bit less? Being able to try different things and then track the progress and see which one works best is also a bonus when you're trying to attain goals. So I would encourage you to think of it like that as well. If I haven't made it clear by now, the biggest thing to know is when you have accomplished your goals. So I think I've already hit that home so many times. And an example of a goal that isn't measurable. So let's go into that, because we're talking about things being measurable and not just tracking the progress, which is super important. But an example of a goal that isn't measurable is saying you are going to be the best at something. That is hard to measure because it's based on opinion. A way to make that measurable is you will gain this many clients, make this many sales, or run this many miles. So you want your goals to be measurable so that you can track the progress. And it's not going to be measurable, as I've already said, if it's super ambiguous, or you're just talking about how you want to be the best, or you want to be at this status, like you're like, okay, I want to be just like this model. Okay, well, how much time are you going to give yourself? What is this person that has that you don't have? What kind of skills do you need to learn? What are all the milestones that you need to hit to get to that spot? Like, you can't just be like, I'm just going to be this or the best at this or get this thing. Like, okay, like, a goal maybe for me is like, I want to get a Tesla. Okay, that's great. How much is that Tesla? How much do you make now? How much can you save over time? How quickly do you want to get that? That'll also influence how much you have to save and how quickly you'll have to rev that up. So, basically your goal will need to include a number or something that can be counted for it to be measurable. And that's very important. So you can't track progress of something that isn't measurable. That's it. That's it. You can't track progress of something that isn't measurable. You can't. And by just having these ambiguous goals, you're not going to be able to create a smart goal. You're not going to be able to create a goal that's actually going to get done. You're actually going to attain it and accomplish it. I find that keeping a journal, a planner, Excel spreadsheet, whatever it is, up to date with your goals will help you document those measurables and the progress. And I think I've already mentioned this before. The planner that I have allows me to update my top 3 goals each day and add in a focus, which allows me to track my progress of getting to however, that for each day. I'm sorry. I am getting all over the place. My planner, I update it with my top 3 goals every day and add in a focus for each day. That's the part I forgot to mention. But I also have Google Sheets that help me track my online content, which allows me to track my progress of getting to however many posts or etc. I prefer to have a written planner for me to document those goals, and I like to be able to go back and see the things that I've done to accomplish those goals. But I also like using my spreadsheet because it allows me to put a plan for myself and put dates in and where I want things to be done. And so I'm actually like driving towards something, and I can, check things off here, enter notes there, if things actually got done. And if it didn't get done, I can easily revamp it because it's on the computer. I can't easily do that on my planner, but I can just, kind of look back and see what was done in my planner. So both of them work really well for me. But it honestly doesn't matter how you track it. Just find the best way that works for you. There are many phone apps that work for progress tracking as well. One that I really like for iPhone, because I use iPhone, is called Goal Streaks, and it's totally free. It allows you to create a list of things that you can check off each time you complete it, create reminders for when it needs to be done, and any exceptions that you may need to incorporate. So I love that. There was a time where I needed to, be reminded to take my vitamins, or to do right now in it, and I still use it to take my vitamins because I forget. I literally forget to take my vitamins all the time. So it's a nice little reminder. But also it really helps me because right now I have in it to do sit-ups every day and to do push-ups every day. And so you can just bring it up, and there's a little calendar for you to check it off, and you can see if you're created a streak, which means that you've gone however many days in a row for doing it, even including your exceptions. So let's say that you want to do, for me, I want to do 15 sit-ups every day and 15 push-ups every day, 3 sets of those every single day. And then, but I only want to do that Monday through Friday. So if I'm able to do that Monday through Friday, and I am able to do that 3 weeks on end, that's a streak of 3 weeks, because my exceptions are Saturday and Sunday, because those don't count for me and those are not part of my goals. So I really like using that so I can keep track of that goal of being able to do those exercises for however many weeks on end, and then being able to track how long it takes me to do those exercises. And then over time I can tell if those are getting easier and be able to up the number of those exercises I can do each time for however many sets. So it's the best quick way, the best, quickest little app that I've found. And believe me, I've gone through so many apps for tracking progress and for, keeping little lists of things so you can check it off, because I really like those kind of things. but that is the best app. It's called, again, Goal Streaks, to just be able to do a quick little like, okay, that's done, moving on. So check that out, or any other app that you can find for your phone. And because if you were like mostly on your phone, I find that it's good to just have an app where you can just click, 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 and then you're done. So being able to track your progress that way. But like I said, it doesn't matter how you do it, just as long as you do it in some way. I think I have hit on all the important things for making sure your goals are measurable. The biggest thing is find a way to track your progress and make sure your goals can actually be measured. That's the most important thing from this. I know it kind of seemed a little bit all over the place, and I think that's just the feel of the whole week, to be blatantly honest with you, because goals are very specific to everyone, but I do feel like there are several rules and formulas people can follow to make the best goal. So again, having a measurable goal, something that actually can be tracked and you can see the progress from it, is much better than just a generalized goal where you're not able to track the progress, you're not able to see if you actually are going to attain it, if you actually have attained it, and what you can do better to make it go by faster or to do it more efficiently or anything like that. That's why it's so important to have that report of the progress tracking. Like, I just love it. I just love having that feedback. You're creating feedback for yourself that you can share with others or with yourself later down the line if you decide to do this thing again. So I'm going to end it there. I hope that you guys really enjoyed this episode. Thank you so much for joining me for the Real Positive Girl podcast. I'm all over the place. And you know what? I don't edit out these like little bumps that come within the podcast because I just, maybe one day my podcast will be super professional and I will edit those things out. But I just want to be like really real with you guys, really transparent. Unless someone is super yelling in the background, then there have been times where I had to pause and start again. So anyway, happy Tuesday. I hope that you really enjoyed this. If you did, please, I encourage you to share it with someone else that may like it. Check the description box for any notes for the show. Also, where you can find me on Instagram or send me an email with any questions, comments, concerns, prayer requests that you may have. But again, happy Tuesday. Thank you so much for coming back to the podcast. I hope that I see you again for the rest of the week and continuing learning about how to create smart goals. But until then, I hope you have a good one, and I will see you next time. Bye.